Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to get all personal today. As you can tell by the title, today's video is going to be about sickle cell disease. So yeah, that is something that is very personal to me. So for those of you who do not know, today is June 19th, and every year June 19th is Sickle Cell Awareness Day. So that is why I decided to do this video on this day. I've always wanted to share this topic with you guys, but I just couldn't quite muster up the courage to come on here and talk about it. But I've lived with it my whole life, and I've experienced with it, and I'm no longer fearful about what others think about me anymore. So now is the perfect time for me to come on here and share my experience with you. And plus, I feel like it's something that we don't talk about enough. So to give you all a brief history, sickle cell disease is a disease that started in Africa as the body's way of combating malaria. So as a result, the blood cells became sickle shaped as opposed to round shaped. And when they become sickle shaped, the malaria parasite cannot penetrate. So if you haven't heard, people with sickle cell disease actually cannot get malaria. But also on the flip side of that, it created this blood disorder disease that causes really painful crisis. So when those moon-shaped blood cells get clotted up it can happen in any part of your body, arms, legs, chest, back, waist, wherever it gets clogged up and it gets clotted up and it can't flow smoothly, you experience a painful crisis that can last anywhere from hours to days to weeks. Sometimes it can lead you to getting hospitalized, where you might need a blood transfusion. It can also cause so many other health complications and health problems. Now, the way this disease is transmitted is that it is passed on genetically from generation to generation. So for me, for instance, both my parents, even though they don't have the disease, they had the trait and they didn't know about it, which is why we need to create awareness. That's one of the reasons why I decided to do this video, regardless of how I feel about it or what others may think about me. Because my mom had the trait, my dad had the trait, and at the time, I was born in 1991, they had no idea what sickle cell was until I was born. And then I think I started getting sick after I was 4, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. So they ran some tests at the hospital, and the doctor told them I had sickle cell and had to explain to them what it was and how I got it. And luckily I was the only one who got it. With my parents, because it was a 50-50, it was kind of like a 25% chance of them having a child with sickle cell. And I have 3 brothers, so out of the 4 of us, I was the only one who got it. So they got pretty lucky. So I really strongly feel like lack of education is also causing this disease to be passed down from generation to generation. Of course, I don't blame my parents because they had no idea. But now as a grown-up, now that I know what it is and how it is passed on, when I'm moving forward and I'm dating and I'm trying to get married and have kids in the future, I'll be mindful of my partner that I choose. So that brings me to talk about my experience, specifically living with this disease as an adult. This disease is pretty common in some African families. And most of my viewers are African. So I'm pretty sure some of you are familiar with it. And it's also a little common in the African American community as well, even in some parts of the Middle East. So some of the big challenges that I faced as an adult, of course, experiencing a crisis, and sometimes there's no warning sign, there's no triggers, there's no nothing. One minute you're living your happy life, you're going to work, everything is fine, and literally within a second, everything can change. And next thing you know is either your leg or your arm, and you can't walk, and everything changes. So that's one of the downsides, is that you can get sick at any moment, at any time. So you always have to be on your toes. One of the things that can cause a crisis to come is changing temperature. If it's too cold or too hot, you could be in trouble. So you always have to make sure that wherever you go, that you're dressed appropriately. If you know it's going to be too cold, make sure you have extra jackets. If you know it's going to be too warm, make sure that you're dressed, you're dressed light so that you don't get too heated. So that's one of the biggest challenges, is always trying to figure out, what to do, and making sure that you're eating right and you're drinking tons and tons of water. Like at work, I have my little water bottle, and I'm literally always going back and forth to the water fountain, and everybody's like, wow, you drink a lot of water. I'm like, you have no idea. My life depends on it. So that's one of the challenges. And of course, the biggest one for me is dating. All right. I feel like Black women, it's already hard enough for us to find a good man, and to add one more thing to your list of things that you have to check off just makes it like 50 times even harder. So, have to be God-fearing, he has to be good, he has to be responsible, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, oh yeah. And by the way, you have to have blood genotype, this and that, and that conversation is always awkward. It's like, you never know how it's going to go. You never know how the guy is going to take it. Sometimes they might not even know about it or never even heard of sickle cell disease before. And that can be a very interesting conversation. And from my experience, I've learned that it's best to bring this topic up right at the beginning of dating. If he's showing interest and you see that he's serious about you after the first, second, third date, it's time to bring it up, because you don't want to, trust me, speaking from experience, we're getting really candid here, okay? You don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're in too deep and you're in love, and then you later find out that his blood genotype has the trait in it, and your kids, if you both want kids, you're going to have a 75% chance of them having sickle cell. And then what? So I feel like that conversation needs to come up right at the beginning stages. If he doesn't know what his blood genotype is, make sure you urge him to go and get tested. Even if not just for you, but for him, so that in the future, if he's going to date somebody else, whether he ends up with you or not, whoever he ends up with, at least he'll be educated on the topic and he'll know to get tested. So that has been the biggest challenge for me. To be completely honest with you, my most recent relationship ended because of it. That's why I'm like stressing on that. Please, regardless if you have sickle cell or not, if you're a Black person, African, Brazilian, wherever, because we are the ones who predominantly have this disease, make sure that whoever you decide to date, that you get tested and you find out whether or not either of you have the trait, so that you know that your children will not have this disease if you do decide to have children. So with today being Sickle Cell Awareness Day, that is one of the things that I really wanted to press on and get the word out for you guys to be aware of. And I feel like there isn't enough awareness out there for sickle cell. Honestly, if people advocated for sickle cell as much as they did for like cancer or diabetes and stuff like that, we will probably have a cure by now. So get involved. If you have sickle cell foundations in your local area, get involved, donate to the foundation, spread the news, spread the word, go and do your research about it to find out what it's all about. If you know somebody with sickle cell, talk to them. Sometimes this disease can be a lonely life and you never really know what people are going through, because it's just pain. You're constantly in pain and nobody really understands the pain that we go through. So it can get pretty lonely. So if you know somebody who has the disease, talk to them, be supportive, be close to them, and also try to find other ways that you can help bring awareness to the cause. So yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this little insight into my personal life. If you didn't know anything about sickle cell disease, I hope you learned something today. I hope this video will help somebody out there. I really appreciate you guys watching me, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.